He poked Krishna to see what Krishna would do. He wanted to see Krishna exhibit the limit of his opulences, which is limitless. So Krishna did what Krishna did, and Brahma fainted. It specifically describes, this is, it's a detail, but it's a nice detail. How many heads does Lord Brahma have? 4 heads. He placed the tips of each of the crowns of his 4 heads on Krishna's lotus feet. Maybe some of you know, I know that some of you know, Sadaputta Prabhu. So Sadaputta Prabhu spent a half an hour one time discussing the pastime of Lord Brahma being called to see Lord Krishna in Dwarka. You know the pastime? Brahma came to see Krishna, very happy. Krishna's called for me. Woo. And so when he came, there was a person at the gate. And he said, who are you? My name is Lord Brahma. Well, you wait here, I'll go inform Krishna and see if he's ready to meet with you. Well, he called me, yes, but I'll see if he's ready to meet with you. So when Krishna was informed, Krishna sent the messenger back to ask him which Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma was bewildered. What do you mean, which Lord Brahma? Chaturmukha Brahma, the father of the 4 Kumaras. Brahma of this universe. Tell him, that Lord Brahma. So the messenger came back, oh, that Lord Brahma, you can come. And when Brahma came before Krishna, what he saw was similarly astonishing. Another feature of Lord Krishna's opulence. He saw the Brahmas of the different universes coming in such a way that he could see them, but they could not see him. Brahma has 4 heads, some of them had 10 heads, and then multiply by 10, 100 heads and 1,000 heads and 10,000 heads and 100,000, that's a lot of heads, and 1 million heads. And they all placed their heads simultaneously at the feet of Krishna. So this half hour just class by Sadaputta was explaining, how is that possible? Krishna had big feet? That's one way. But it's not that Krishna had big feet. It's that space can move and time can move according to Krishna's indication, however Krishna likes to satisfy his pastimes. If you remember from the Brahma Samhita seminar here in Seattle, time is very flexible in the spiritual world. When for the purpose of Krishna's pastimes, when Narada Muni, I'm way off topic, but it's nice. When Narada Muni went to see Krishna in Dwarka, at the same time Krishna was doing things as if it was different times of the day. Sometimes it was night, sometimes it was morning, sometimes it was midday, sometimes it was afternoon, but it was all the same time of the day, but it's different times of the day. For Krishna's pastimes, time is flexible, space is flexible. So in any case, Brahma placed all 4 crowns, the tips of his crowns, touching the lotus feet of Krishna. And then he stood up, and the curtain of Yogamaya disappeared, and all the cowherd boys who were Krishna, and all the forms of Narayana who were Krishna, and all the energies of Krishna personified, poof, they just disappeared. And he saw Krishna, Brindavan, and the whole universe. Doesn't elaborate, like Mother Jasoda saw within the mouth of Krishna the whole universe, but he saw outside of Krishna the whole universe. Not exactly the universal form, but not exactly not the universal form. He saw it's what he saw. Everything, as the Mahabhagavata description of Ramananda Roy says, a person on that platform can see the forms of objects of this world, but they don't exactly just see the objects like we see objects. They see Krishna, the form of Krishna, not just objects in relation to Krishna. So who knows what that is? But it's certainly not possible by knowledge. It's possible by revelation. And Krishna reveals whatever he wants to reveal to his dear devotees. So Brahma's prayers, these first 8 verses, covered many nice points, but his gratitude to Krishna for having shown him such mercy, his understanding, his declaration that knowledge is not possible. Through knowledge, not possible to understand Krishna, the unknowable through the process of knowledge, and in particular also the unlimited potencies of that unlimited Supreme Person who can expand himself into other unlimited manifestations, each with unlimited potencies, personified, and not just, read it in invocation verse of Ishopanishad, but see it. He felt he was a recipient of great mercy. So the emphasis here then is upon his feelings of humility as he was offering these prayers. Because of that feeling of humility, whatever tendency for knowing things through speculative method was gone, only receiving transcendental wisdom in this descending fashion. When one submits unto Krishna, eager to understand Krishna, can one know Krishna. And that's something that's going to repeat. These initial prayers are then going to be expanded further in the additional prayers. So these first 8 were very important. We've heard in the first 8 verse that Brahma has taken full shelter in the bhakti process, specifically abandoning the speculative method of understanding the truth. And then the next 4 verses, 9, 10, 11, 12, he offered his submission of apology to Krishna for his offense. He was very specific about what his offense was as well. And now he's going to make some declarations about his realizations about Krishna through bhakti process that's not knowable through Gyan process. So if there's any Gyanis that are here, you can just pack your bag and head for the door, because it's not knowable that way. So we're the first 2 verses, 13 and 14. Thank you. 13 and 14. I'll just read the translation. My dear Lord, it is said that when the 3 planetary systems are merged into the water at the time of dissolution, your plenary portion, Narayana, lies down on the water. Gradually a lotus flower grows from his navel. That's Garbhodakshay Vishnu for sure. The other one is Mahavishnu or Shiradakshay Vishnu for sure. And Brahma takes birth upon that lotus flower. Again, that's Garbhodakshay Vishnu. Certainly these words are not false. Thus, am I not born from you? So here's this 4-year-old boy standing before the firstborn living being in the universe, and the firstborn being in the universe is saying to the 4-year-old boy, "Are you not my father?" Surely you are my father. And the commentary naturally says, Krishna is saying, "What? Brahma, why, please consider. You're an intelligent person. Why are you speaking like this?" Something like what Arjuna says to Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. How is this possible? You spoke to the sun god Vivaswan, who's senior to you by birth. Vivaswan was born before you were even born. And how you say you spoke this to the sun god Vivaswan millions of years ago? Please consider what you were speaking. So this is other dimensional. Or Krishna has disclosed it. Not that Brahma didn't know these things, but now Brahma not just knew these things, he saw these things. Krishna's position. So now, to understand this verse, commentary explains, and you may also remember from the Brahma Samhita discussion, this nomenclature of forms of Vishnu and nomenclature of forms of Lord Shiva, etc., how to understand them depends upon the circumstance, or the sentence construct. What does that mean? It means that the term Narayana, which in ISKCON, followers of Srila Prabhupada, we're accustomed to a very consistent utilization of that term. What does it mean? The Lord of Vaikuntha, the husband of the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi. That's him, that's Narayana. Consistent, so we don't get confused. However, in the Vedic literature, and this is one example, sometimes the term Narayana is used in other ways. Really? What are some of those other ways? Here's one. Narayana, the way that Brahma is identifying Krishna as Narayana, is the four-armed form of the Lord, including the Purusha avatars. What are the Purusha avatars? Mahavishnu, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, and Shiradakshay Vishnu. Okay, this is going to be a challenge. 4 boys catching. Anyway, let's see how it goes. Okay. So, the 3 Vishnu forms, the Vishnu expansions, they're specific for the function of creation. They don't directly contact material energy, but they're involved with the process of creation, which requires material energy. Pause. Narayana there's no contact with material energy at all. Vishnu doesn't contact directly material energy, but a function or an expansion of the Supreme Lord deals with creation. That's what he's speaking about. You're my father. Who's the father? Well, he's called Aja. Yeah, it's right there. Ajas. Lord Brahma. He who is unborn by mother and father, by the ordinary sense, he's Aja. That's Lord Brahma. But he has a father. Doesn't have mother, father. He has father. His father is both his father and mother. That's pretty unique. And that's Garbhadakshay Vishnu, who from his abdomen comes a lotus. In fact, it's mentioned. Yeah. Gradually, a lotus flower grows from his navel. That's this word. Nabhi. From his navel grows a lotus, and on top of the lotus is a lotus flower. On top of the lotus flower is Lord Brahma. So his father, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, is the father, and the father is an expansion of Mahavishnu, who's a form of Narayana in a broader sense than we're used to hearing it, generally speaking, in Prabhupada's purports. Was the point I just made clear? Anybody? Did I lose anybody? The term, in this case, I'll say it slowly, the term Narayana and the Vishnu forms, they're being used interchangeably. So if you're used to them not being used interchangeably, you'll be confused. But don't be confused. Because in this case, they're being used interchangeably. And so he, Brahma, is referring to Krishna, this 4-year-old transcendental personality standing before him, as the original Narayana. Are you not my father? And then the next verse. O Lord of Lords, you are the seer of all creation. That's, the colors are not showing for some reason. Loka Shakshi. It was showed well this morning. Anyway, Loka Shakshi is the seer of all creation. There's a devotee in China, his name is Loka Shakshi. Anybody you know, ISKCON devotee named Loka Shakshi? No. At least there's one. Loka Shakshi. He's a nice devotee. Tamal Krishna Maharaj's disciple. You are the seer of all creation. So, Nara Ayana. He's the seer of all creation, the seer of all living entities. You are indeed everyone's dearest life. Are you not, therefore, my father, Narayana, parentheses, Garbhodakshay Vishnu? Are you not my father, Narayana? Narayana refers to one whose abode is in the water, born from Nara, Garbhodakshay Vishnu. Some of you may have read, I'm sure some of you, I know Bhattahari and probably as Kosharupa have read some portions of Chaitanya Bhagavat. And in Chaitanya Bhagavat, regularly, Vrindavan Das Thakur refers to Advaita Acharya as Nara. Nara. Mahavishnu. Here, Garbhodakshay Vishnu. So again, here's a word, Nara, that has different meanings. Sometimes it means the totality of all living entities. Nara Deva. That's Narada Muni. So, interesting. So, when Garbhodakshay Vishnu enters into each universe, what happens? He perspires. It's hot. An enclosed universe, it's hot. And he perspires. He perspires Garbhodak, Jal. And half of the universe fills with that Garbhodak ocean. And then he lies down on that ocean. I guess he stops perspiring. And then a little bud comes from his navel, according to Srimad Bhagavatam. That bud of this lotus stem is the sum total of all the karma of all the living entities that are within that universe and that are within the body of Garbhodakshay Vishnu. That's what the stem is. And then the stem grows, and on top of the stem comes a flower, and Brahma appears on top of that flower. So Brahma is saying, are you not my father, Narayana? Narayana refers to one whose abode is in the water. Here it is, Jala, born from Nara, Narabhu Jala, Nayat, Yanat. And that Narayana, parentheses, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, is your plenary portion. So that person who is my father, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, is an expansion of you. That's what he's saying. All your Krishna's plenary portions are transcendental. They are absolute and are not creations of Maya. 2 verses. And these 2 verses are so important that it takes up a whole section of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Charitamrita, well, a chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishnadas Kaviraj. That's an image of, by the way. Krishnadas Kaviraj refers to that first verse, and then Krishna says to Brahma, Brahma, why are you speaking like this? You're the oldest person in the universe, and I'm just 4 years old. Why are you saying, are you not my father? Why are you speaking like this? You're a learned person. It doesn't seem right. So then Krishnadas Kaviraj takes these 2 verses and presents that there are 3 reasons within these 2 verses. Do it slowly. Why he gives his arguments. I'll tell you, Krishna, why I'm speaking like this. In fact, I'll prove that you're my father. Here goes. This is the shorter version. It's a much longer version. This term Narayana is made up of, it's a compound word, Nara and Ayana. Nara is the aggregate of all living beings, and Ayana means the shelter. So you're the shelter of all living beings. There's a longer version, but that's the essence of it. Therefore, you are the original Narayana. Everything comes from you, including all living entities, and of the 10 subject matters of Srimad Bhagavatam, number 10 is that Krishna is the ashraya. He's the shelter. He's the ayana. He's the shelter of everything. Brahma knows that. So you're the original Narayana. And then the second one. Anybody know what the second one is? You want to guess? No, you don't want to guess. It has to do with Krishna being the source not only of living entities, but the source of the Purusha avatars, which is in the verse. Krishna is the source of the Purusha avatars. He protects and invests potency in each of the 3 Purushas, who in turn are the shelter of all living entities. So Krishna is the shelter of those who are the shelter. So he's the original Narayana. And then the third is different meanings of these words, Nara and Ayana. Krishna oversees the wanderings, or ayanas, of all living beings. That's the Paramatma feature. He's the source of the Paramatma feature. He's the source of the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu feature and the other Purusha avatars. And ultimately, he's the source of everything. Therefore, he's using his intellect. But his intellect is fortified by pure devotion. Therefore, he's offering his respects. Then he takes these 2, 13, 14, and it launches a whole section, 15 through 29. So that's where the video clip comes in. Here's 15. I'll just read the translation and then the video section. My dear Lord, based on 13, 14, if your transcendental body, which shelters the entire universe, is actually lying upon the water, then why you were not seen by me when I searched for you? Right? He climbed down the stem searching for who was his father. He couldn't find out. But you're lying in the water, so why I couldn't see you? And why, though I could not envision you properly within my heart, did you then suddenly reveal yourself the answer is that speculation and direct sense perception are not sufficient to realize Krishna. When he's very intelligent. I mean, the first thing he asked is not, where's some food, I'm hungry. Where's my japa beads, I want to chant my japa. His first question was, where did I come from? And who am I? And what is the purpose of my existence? That's where he started. First thought. He's very intelligent. And then he used his reasoning faculty. Here I am on a lotus. The lotus must have an origin. If I climb down the lotus, I'll find my origin. I'll find out where I came from. Logic. And reason. And then he used his sense perception. He climbed down and 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 down. Couldn't find the end of the stem. So by one's own effort, by reason and logic and direct sense perception, our origin can't be understood. Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, beginning parts of chapter 10. It's not understood that way. And when Krishna wants to disclose himself, he can disclose himself to anybody. And that's how it happens, by mercy of Krishna, who exhibits his special mercy when he sees someone truly wants him, as what has happened with Brahma. That's why. So now here comes the video, and do a little check on the sound to make sure the volume is good. The voice is credit to the creator. The voice is Prematrangadi's voice, and Shatarupa is the one that created the images.
Lord Brahma attempts to express the ramifications of the opulence that he has seen Krishna display. He prays to Krishna, "O Lord, I previously was unable to either understand or see you due to the coverings of your own Maya, your illusory energy. But you are the controller of that Maya, and that was proved by Mother Yashoda's seeing the universe within your abdomen. Now, at the present, that universe is externally manifest as your inconceivable energy, and it is therefore all that I perceive. Today, by your manifesting all the cows, cowherd boys, and Vishnu forms who are being worshipped by all living entities, you've demonstrated that the entire creation is your inconceivable potency. And now, I'm seeing before me the original form of the unlimited, supreme, absolute truth. To the ignorant, you seem to be of this material world, although it is you who appears as Brahma, the creator, who appears as Vishnu, the maintainer, and as Shiva, the destroyer. To demonstrate that you, the absolute truth, is an unlimited transcendental person, you descend within the universe as avatars, and you take birth among the demigods, sages, humans, animals, and the aquatics. As an avatar, you then, by your spiritual potency, perform your innumerable, inconceivable, mysterious pastimes. Due to you, this entire universe, which, like a dream, is by nature unreal, nevertheless appears real. And thus, it covers one's consciousness and assails one with repeated miseries. This universe appears real because it is manifested by the potency of illusion emanating from you, whose unlimited transcendental forms are full of eternal happiness and knowledge. You are the one Supreme Soul, the primeval Supreme Personality, the Absolute Truth, self-manifesting, endless and beginningless. You are eternal and infallible, perfect and complete, without any rival, and free from all material designations. Your happiness cannot be obstructed, nor have you any connection with material contamination. Indeed, you are the indestructible nectar of immortality. By the grace of his spiritual master, a jnani can mix bhakti with his jnana. He will then be able to see you as the soul of all souls. He will be able to see you as the super soul of his own self. This vision will allow him to cross the ocean of material existence. For one who has thus realized you, the illusory energy at once subsides, for he is free of the false vision of perceiving anything as separate from you. Seeing you with this vision of knowledge and remaining in knowledge of you, devoid of the false perceptions that are the cause of the existence of the material world, his ignorance and illusion cease. Therefore, through knowledge of you and knowledge of himself as your eternal servant, neither liberation nor bondage have meaning for him, just as day and night have no meaning for one present on the sun planet. How foolish are the jnanis! How because they consider your form as a manifestation of illusion. How foolish are the conditioned souls! Regardless of how intelligent they think themselves as being, they all perceive themselves as their bodies, and they thus fail to see their self as part of you. They're all fools because they reject you, and in so doing, they search for the Supreme Soul outside of your Supreme Personality. How foolish are all of these so-called learned men. O unlimited Lord, the saintly devotees who have added bhakti to their jnana seek you out within their own bodies by rejecting everything separate from you. Indeed, how can discriminating persons appreciate the real nature of a rope lying before them until they refute the illusion that it is a snake? My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But Those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years.
Because the part that you couldn't hear in going back and forth, it's very nice. I'll do it at the end. So that was verse 15 through 29. And in these verses, Brahma has, in summary, he's declared Krishna is the personality of Godhead, the Supreme, the original, even the origin and source of Narayana. And this final verse explains how is that to be known. During the questions and answer booth at the New York Rath Yatra, that was one of the questions. How do we underline, know that there's God? This is verse 29, another amongst many verses, the concluding verse of the section, but a very famous verse. Adapite deva padam buja dvaya prasada lesha grihita eva hi janati tattvam bhagavan mahimno nachanya eko pi chiram vichinvan. If you've heard Prabhupada lecture, you've heard this verse. It's quoted many times. Translation. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace, now the colors are clear, that's nice. Lesha means a slight trace of what? Padambuja dvaya prasad, the mercy of your dvaya pada, your two lotus feet. He can understand, janati tattvam, the greatness of your personality, Bhagavan Mahimno. But, that last section, those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. Vichinvan. Chiram vichinvan. Oops. So then comes the next section. After verse 29 comes verse 30. So 30 through 34, these are verses, 30 is where Brahma is responding. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur puts in his commentary. So Krishna's saying, Brahma, very good. You've understood how to understand me, and you've understood me. Now, what is it you would want? Now, Krishna knows what we want, but he asks. And here's Brahma's answer. Whoops. My dear Lord, I therefore pray to be so fortunate. This term, Bhuri Bhaga, appears several times, about 4 times, Bhuri Bhaga. Greatly fortunate. What is that? In this life as Lord Brahma, or in another life, wherever I take my birth, I may be counted as one of your devotees. I pray that wherever I may be, even among the animal species, I can engage in devotional service to your lotus feet. But Hari, did you sing the song where Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, if I have to take birth, let me take birth as even a dog in the family of devotees? You know that one. So, similar. I mean, the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur are following the songs of, or the prayers of Brahma, or the expressions of pure devotion. Even if I must take birth in an animal species, let me take birth in such a way I can be in the association of devotees and serve the devotees. Extreme humility. He's not very similar to Mahaprabhu's Shikshastakam. He's not praying, he could ask for anything. Pray for liberation. Pray to become a resident of Vrindavan. He's so humble, he understands, you hear the next verses, he understands the super excellence of the position of the residents of Vrindavan. That Yoga Maya curtain has also been revealed, pulled back and revealed to him. But he's just asking to be engaged in service. And in his next birth, well, how long is that going to be? Because he lives for the duration of the universe. When Lord Brahma dies, the universe is over. And then for the equal duration of the universe is the resting period. So if he takes birth again, it's another creation. But whatever my position may be, even if it's in another creation, let me be engaged in your devotional service. That will be considered my greatest fortune. Buddhi, Bhagya. Then, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary says, Brahma plunges into the ocean of Rajaprem. So the next 4 verses are just appreciation of the residents of Brindavan. Although he didn't ask to take his birth amongst them. O Almighty Lord, how greatly fortunate, that's this Ati Danya, are the cows and the ladies of Braja, Braja Go Ramanya, the cows and the ladies of Vrindavan. Why? The nectar of whose breast milk you have happily drunk to your full satisfaction, taking the form of their calves and children. He knows those cowherd boys that were sitting, having lunch with Krishna, not the ones that were in the cave, but the ones that were manifest before him, the second set. That was Krishna, and Krishna was making a pastime so he could satisfy the cows and the elder ladies who had sons that were cowherd boys. They wanted Krishna as their son, so he accepted that position. That was one of the many things he was accomplishing through one thing, this pastime. And he's saying, you felt more satisfaction from being given the milk of the cows and those mothers more than all the Vedic sacrifices performed from time immemorial up to the present day. You received more satisfaction by that, taking milk directly from the loving cows of Vrindavan, or taking milk directly from the loving mothers of Vrindavan. More satisfaction than all the Vedic sacrifices since time immemorial, up until today. That's a lot of sacrifices. That's a lot of happiness. So previously he said, I can't understand your opulences, what to speak of your happiness. But he can understand that the love of the residents of Vrindavan is so great, that gives Krishna more happiness than all Vedic sacrifices. Then, here's Aho Bhagyam. He says it twice. Aho Bhagyam. Nanda Gopa Vrajao Kasam. Nanda Gopa? Nanda Maharaj, the king of the cowherds, Nanda Gopa. and the other cowherd men and all the other inhabitants of Brajabhumi. There is no limit to their good fortune, because the absolute truth, the source of transcendental bliss, the eternal supreme Brahman, has become their friend. The Sanskrit for their friend is Yan Mitram. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, he mentions Nanda Maharaj, but he doesn't mention the cowherd boys by name. Stoka Krishna and Sridham and Subal and this one and that one. Because he's embarrassed. He kidnapped them and put them in a cave. And they're still in the cave. They haven't come back yet. He's still having this conversation with Krishna. So he hasn't mentioned their names. But they're the ones that are so, along with Nanda Maharaj and all the other inhabitants, they have become dearmost friends of Krishna. How greatly fortunate. Aho bhagyam, aho bhagyam. Then, yet, even though the extent of good fortune of these residents of Vrindavan is inconceivable, we, 11 presiding deities of the various senses headed by Lord Shiva, are also most fortunate. Why? Because the senses of these devotees of Vrindavan are the cups through which we repeatedly drink the nectarian, intoxicating beverage of the honey of your lotus feet. Jiva Goswami writes in his commentary, well, not exactly. Because those who have material bodies, the power of the senses is dependent upon the demigods to give power to the senses. Because of the empowerment of the demigods, we can see, smell, taste, touch, etc. Our sensual power is dependent upon the demigods. Whereas the bodies of the cowherd boys, they're spiritual bodies, and so they're not dependent upon the demigods. But they feel fortunate. The demigods, Brahma and Shiva and the other 9, feel fortunate in that here he is in Vrindavan and seeing the form of Krishna, and in that way, because the devotees of the senses of the residents of Vrindavan devotees are so enlivened, their happiness becomes our happiness to the degree that there's devotion. The happiness of one who's engaged very, very nicely in Sankirtan, that brings happiness to the devotee. Just like during Kirtan. Some devotees are experiencing great happiness, and we see the devotees singing or dancing or just absorbed in the Kirtan, and it brings happiness. And then increases our happiness, which increases others' happiness, and it's a crescendo, an orchestration of happiness because of the happiness of the devotees, because of the happiness of Krishna. When Krishna's happiness at the center, that's best. And the last of, no, 2 more. 34, here it is, Bhuri Bhagyam again. My greatest possible good fortune would be, just like Uddhava wanted, to take any birth, whatever, in the forest of Gokula, and have my head bathed by the dust falling from the lotus feet of any of its residents. Their entire life and soul is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mukunda, the dust of whose lotus feet is still being searched for in the Vedic mantras. Vedic mantras are searching for them, and the cowherd boys are experiencing. Let me take birth as some kind of entity where some of that dust from some of the cowherd boys or gopis can land on my head, and I can get that. Much better than just the study of the Vedas. Much better. Pada Raja, dust from the lotus feet of Mukunda. Oops. Then we saw this text 35 earlier, and it goes like this. My mind becomes bewildered. Just trying to think of what reward other than you could be found anywhere. You are the embodiment of all benedictions which you bestow upon these residents of the cowherd community of Vrindavan. You have already arranged to give yourself to Putana and her family members. We spoke about that, remember? Who are the family members of Putana? Agasura and Bakasura. Very good. You didn't even have to look at your notes. Very good. Good memory. Thank you. In exchange, what did she do? She disguised herself as a devotee. That's what she did. So Krishna gave himself. So what to speak? The residents of Vrindavan, whose homes, wealth, friends, dear relations, bodies, children, very lives and hearts are dedicated unto you only. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, in this way, Brahma is asking, they've given you everything, these things and these things and these things. How are you going to reciprocate with them? You're such a generous giver. You gave yourself to Putana, then how are you going to reciprocate with the Brajbasis? And then Vishwanath answers, you cannot. And that's what Krishna says too. I cannot repay you. Doesn't he say that? So then what does he say after I can't repay you? You should be satisfied by just meditating upon me. Dhyan yoga and Gyan yoga. And they say Dhyan yoga and Gyan yoga. Get out of here. We want you. Don't do this to us. So then they cross the bound of shyness and they enter into what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur calls the mood of pranaya. They cross the bounds of social convention and they become like left-wing gopis. You can't do this to us. It's not, they scold him. It intensifies their dimension of love. That's how he reciprocates with them. He becomes then purchased by that love. So he says, all right, you can stay. That's how Krishna, in these upper realms of bhakti, how Krishna repays, by intensifying the characteristics of love of his devotees. So then the last section of verses. I think I'm going to end on time this time. He considers, Brahma considers, someone may think, I'm a great renunciate. I have no possessions and I have no attachments. I wander alone in the forest. I am more advanced than these householder Brajvasis who look after their cows. So to such deluded persons and other misguided souls, Brahma concludes his prayers in the following manner. Text 36. My dear Lord Krishna, until people become your devotees, their material attachments and desires remain thieves, their homes remain prisons, and their affectionate feelings for their family members remain foot shackles. not very complimentary description of persons who are devoid of bhakti. My dear Master, although you have nothing to do with material existence, you come to this earth and imitate material life just to expand the varieties of ecstatic enjoyment for your surrendered devotees. There are people who say, I know everything about Krishna. Let them think that way. As far as I am concerned, I do not wish to speak very much about this matter. Oh, my Lord, let me say this much. As far as your opulences are concerned, they are all beyond the reach of my mind, body, and words. Two more. My dear Krishna, I now humbly request permission to leave. Actually, you are the knower and the seer of all things. Indeed, you are the Lord of all the universes. And yet I offer this one universe unto you. It's already His. And the last, my dear Shri Krishna, you bestow happiness upon the lotus-like Vishnu dynasty and expand the great oceans consisting of the earth, the demigods, the brahmanas, and the cows. You dispel the dense darkness of irreligion and oppose the demons. He's only 4 years old. Who have appeared on this earth. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, as long as this universe exists, and as long as the sun shines, that's how long the sun lasts, by the way, the duration of Brahma's life, and then it's over too. I will offer my obeisances unto you. And the end of Lord Brahma's prayers. So when the position of genuine humility enters the heart, it's not the worldly kind humility, it's the spiritual kind. Trinadapi sunichena. One it becomes more eager to receive mercy. You know, the converse is if one isn't particularly feeling humble, then who needs mercy? I'm okay, you're okay. And that openness for descending mercy, things that are impossible become possible. Like Krishna Das Kaviraj writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, for one who has faith, in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the impossible becomes possible. A lame man can climb great mountains. I had this knee problem for a while. It was difficult even to climb upstairs. And I was thinking of that verse of Mahaprabhu, or Krishna Das Kaviraj. A lame man can climb mountains. I guess it's possible. Anything's possible by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. A blind man can see the stars in the sky. A complete fool can understand the conclusive truths of the Vedas. When mercy is there, but mercy, He's merciful. But one has to be eager for that mercy, and that eagerness for mercy, the invitation within ourselves for the mercy of Krishna, is this position of humility. So Krishna, going full circle around to the beginning of the discussion this morning, Krishna is in the heart of every one of us. Krishna knows each one of us, and He knows where our attachments are. He knows what our strengths and weaknesses are. He knows what our favorite Maya is. He knows what we're detached from. He knows the whole thing. We don't have to disclose anything. He already knows. the intimacy of Brindavan. But first, the intimacy of Vrindavan is such that this is very, very confidential. Brahma is being allowed inside that very confidential place, Vrindavan. And he gets it because of his devotion, not just because he's, very intelligent. He's a great devotee. He can understand that the difference between, like Prabhupada says, the man in his office and the man in his home. Mr. So-and-so, or Your Honor, or Sir, or something like that in the office. And then in the home, it's very intimate. And Krishna's shown Brahma the intimacy. But to get to that place where that intimacy is shown, Krishna knows each of our situations, and Krishna gives us some opportunity to become closer to Him. He invites us. Sometimes He does more than that. He makes arrangements that obstacles that are standing between us and Him, Krishna removes them. But some of those things are, for us, they're not just obstacles, they're attachments. And Krishna removes them. In this particular case, nothing happened yet. I mean, the offense of Lord Brahma was, in one level, he was challenging his strength against Krishna's strength. He wanted to see what Krishna would do. Maybe some of you have seen that Your Ever Well-Wisher, where Nathji, a very wonderful man, devotee, in Bombay, when he met Prabhupada, he said, as a businessman, as part of what businessmen do, they look to see where's the weakness of the other person. So I tested Swamiji to see, maybe he was greedy, maybe he wanted power, maybe this, maybe that. So I tested him, and he had no weakness. Then I could realize he's genuine. He's coming from a place of devotion. There is no weakness. Maybe I'm not saying it exactly as he said it, but like that. So for one who is situated in pure devotion, they have no attachment. We have. And Krishna will examine us and give us opportunities to address the attachment and choose Krishna instead of the attachment. And then Krishna can do with that object of attachment however he likes. And he'll engage us according to that attachment in such a way will help us come closer to him, not according to our plan, but according to his plan. And that's the way of devotional service. And it's the way of deepening our entrance into the holy name, is approaching the holy name in that mood, in a mood of humility. So we've come here for a Japa Retreat. Now just kind of background summary. We've come here for a Japa Retreat to help us. For some people, as I mentioned, some people it'll be the beginning of your life of chanting 16 rounds. Maybe there's some persons here who are a little newer, and that's where it's going to end up afterwards. And for the rest of us, chanting 16 rounds for some period of time to improve the qualities. Maybe some of you are students and it's difficult during the school year to keep your 16 rounds, then it's a commitment, at least during the summer, you chant 16 rounds. But in overall, whether it's numerical or whatever, a deeper relationship with Krishna through the agency of Krishna's holy name. It's practically predictable. It's just a question of when. Like sending a patient to a hospital that, they're going to have a problem. That's why they're in the hospital. It's just a question of when the problem will come. Anyway. Imagine it was more than 2. We're very fortunate. It's only 2. But it's not raining. We're double fortunate. Okay, so Japa retreats. With strengthening the theme overall for the retreat is strengthening the mood of humility. Now, since it's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teaching, and since we're hearing from our acharyas and from Lord Brahma, the original preceptor of our sampradaya, and the commentators on this pastime, understanding the greatness of Krishna is certainly an impetus, but that's going to be far from us unless devotion and humility and submission are there. So to the degree that that's there, the quality of our chanting will strengthen. Now, a little bit about tomorrow. Are there how many persons have not attended a Japa retreat and don't know like the procedures of how this works? Has everyone? Okay, a few have not. Okay, fine. Tomorrow we'll be observing Mauna Vrata, except these 2 boys. That's too much to ask for them. But everybody else, Mauna Vrata. And you'll find, that means, from the time you get up in the morning, and even when you go to take breakfast and, unless there's some instruction you have to give to your children or something practical like that, please observe Mauna Vrata. And it helps focus. And during the day tomorrow, is the weather forecast still supposed to be no rain and nice? Yes? So it's nice if you can chant together in the temple room, this hall here. Some of you may remember from last year, there was a presentation of meditations that over 50% of the people said that really was the number one thing that helped them more than all of the other things. Today is like preparation for tomorrow and what happened, so that it's just very short expressions of devotional mood while chanting. And as far as I recall, advances itself, and so it's very different than all of what's been going on today, at least my part. But it's very nice. And stay together in the association of others who are chanting. If you need to go for a walk, it's a wonderful place to go for walks. The presentation, by the way, because I won't be able to say it tomorrow, so I'm saying it today, because tomorrow's Mauna Vrata. This little book, Crying for Krishna, have you seen this one? It's the basis of the presentation for tomorrow, the meditations upon Krishna. It's the mood of reaching out and in a humble mood calling for Krishna's mercy in so many different ways. Very, very nicely done. She didn't do it, she just approved that we could use her text. I think then the next one, I'm going to make arrangements for copies, and people want copies to help them as a nice support for their japa. Maybe we'll have some left over from next year here too. Try to keep in the association of devotees. If you need to get up and move around and go for a walk, fine. Try to then come back after some time, after you stretched your legs or got, whatever it is that you need to do, done. Stay in, because it helps. Experience has shown it helps to keep in that sangha. And for those that are unable to complete 64 rounds, there's something in the schedule that says we'll have a little class. Again, it's another presentation, so it'll be indoors in that next building. It'll be cleaned or something like that. Vrajabhakti. You pass on the message. You'll see that it gets cleaned. Okay. So whatever the schedule says, and then we'll get together in the evening. Rest well. Don't eat a big breakfast. It's tough if you eat a big breakfast to chant in the morning after having a big breakfast. Focus on this message. You've many different prompts for the message of humility. Just one little sharing, and then I'll end and see if there's some discussion. Padahari, were you at the Japa Retreat in Ojai? Yeah. Some years ago, Purusha Sukta was inspired by Bhakti Tirtha Swami, his spiritual master, to see some ways whereby our devotees, our senior devotees that spend so much of their time caring for others, could spend time with each other. And so he held a Japa retreat for leaders. And I remember it took all the king's horses and all the king's men to get Jamuna and Dinatarani to come, because they said, we're not leaders, why should we come? No, the idea is not like you have a big position leadership in ISKCON, but you're looked up to by many devotees. So they came, and it was a very nice event. And one of the persons who attended was Mother Rasagya. And what we will do the following morning, we did after our 64-round day, and Mother Rasagya was sharing. And she said, I was really looking forward to this for months. I was really psyched up, and I was so happy. And as soon as we started the 64-round day, my mind started to fill with all the thoughts of all the mean and hurtful things I did to others. Things that I couldn't even, like if I tried to remember, I couldn't remember. My mind flooded with them, and it was painful, and I just get up and walk out of the room, and it followed me, and the more I struggled with it, the more it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I started to cry. I had to leave the Association of Devotees because I didn't want them to see me cry. It just kept going and going and going, and for 48 rounds. Then I just threw my hands up in the air and said, Krishna, why are you doing this? You can do with me whatever you like. And the whole mood changed. As soon as I gave up my expectation of my experience was going to be such and such, and just surrendered to Krishna, the whole thing completely changed. And it was like, the storm was over and the clouds parted, the sun came out, and it was amazing. And then I was feeling a happiness like I've never experienced before. Just because I let go of the steering wheel. And Krishna, you're in control. I'm yours. Remember that sharing that she gave? I'm saying it somewhat differently than her, I'm sure, but it's like that. So just place yourself in Krishna's hands, and wherever he wants to take you in your relationship with him, be ready. Any comments or questions or discussion in general? Yes.
I saw that the last verse of the chapter in like 10.14, the last verse is kind of like Yadaida Hitarmasya, like because like you kill the demons and bestow happiness on the devotees, basically.
You making a statement or asking a question?
Comment.
Oh, comment. You're saying this is like Krishna's verse?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you'll be happy. Just surrender to Krishna and you'll be happy. Yes? Are you happy? I'm not asking if you surrender to Krishna. Okay. That means even if something falls on your head, you'll be happy, right? Or your sock gets a hole in it, or someone takes one of your shoes, the right one, they leave the left one. You go to get your shoes and one of them's gone. You'll be happy, right? Depends if it's cold outside or not. So things may happen in life that may take our attention away from surrendering to Krishna. They look like a problem. Those are good situations, good opportunities, because it's an opportunity to see where our attachments are and let go of those attachments and take shelter of Krishna. It's an opportunity. Go get another pair of shoes if you can't find the other shoe. You know, make practical arrangements so that you can go on with your service somehow. Even, it's not nice that someone took your shoe or something fell on your head or, whatever the problem might be. Anything else? Yeah.
A friend asked me about karmic reactions. So karmic reactions to non-devotees versus karmic reactions to devotees. And what is that turning point when karmic reactions to devotees stop and Krishna nullifies their reactions? She actually gave instance of like her family who is some relatives who are opulent. So I said, well, that's result of karma, pious activities or credits.
That's clear. So the question is specifically is where's the line between reactions that come to devotees?
Right, and then reactions also stop at some point. So is that because I probably gave her a wrong answer saying that devotees don't get reactions, it's Krishna's arrangement, whatever happens in their lives.
Well,
but I might not be right.
My response to that question is, yeah, but. A qualified yes. The qualified yes, the yes part is, when we're engaged in Krishna's service, we're under the care of the internal potency. And under the care of the internal potency, reactions to past karma is nullified. There's potency even in abhas and sadhana bhakti to nullify all reactions up to the root, not just the prarabdha karmas, but all the other ones. Even in the sadhana stage of bhakti. So sadhana means not yet pure, still mixed. And so the but part, often not only bhakti is mixed, but bhakti is intermittent. Sometimes not. Sometimes not. We do things sometimes not in the consciousness of pleasing Krishna, but some other consciousness. Even, get back consciousness. That's not for Krishna, but sometimes that happens. And then we're no longer under the care of the internal potency, we're in the other kind of energy. And then we're held responsible for those activities and the reactions for those activities. So, so then you have to look at each situation, or a particular situation as you're describing your friend, and look at the situation. You can give like a broad answer, but then it has to be applied to the specifics. If we simply continue to engage ourselves faithfully in devotional service, which is Lord Brahma's message in his prayers, Mukti Padesva Dayapak, for sure. Just somehow, faithfully, nurtured by the hearing and chanting process, faithfully dedicating ourselves to that process. Then, no more karmic reactions, no more material world, back home, back to Godhead. Even when there's some mix, just the submission unto Krishna needs to continue. Anything else? Mataji in the back.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. When we were discussing verse 30 and 34.
About 30 and 34?
Yes. You mentioned that sensual powers are dependent upon demigods. So
What's dependent upon what?
Sensual powers.
Which powers?
Sensual powers.
Sensual powers are dependent upon the demigods, yes?
I don't understand what that means.
It's in the third canto Bhagavatam. When we're, here's a hand. And for the sensation of feeling something with my hand or my finger, it's dependent upon the demigods. For me to move my hand, it's dependent upon the demigod's sanction. The power of locomotion. The power of the senses is dependent. When there's material form, that's what the demigods do. They supervise the affairs of the material world. Okay? Yeah.
I had a question regarding humility. So, from my personal experience, I've observed that whenever things are not going all right in my life, I'm more dependent on Krishna, and I'm kind of taking shelter of Krishna more, and I'm praying intensely and chanting nicely. But whenever things are going right, I forget that, okay, I need to be more humble. We recite the Shikshastakam and then prayers like Lord Brahma's prayers to Lord Krishna, but then how do we, in practical sense, develop humility when things are going like nicely in our life and everything is going good? How do we kind of make sure that we keep that message in mind that we need to be more humble?
Well, a short answer is by spiritual conception. Extend that and say, conversely, as long as one is continuing with the material conception, it's not going to happen consistently. But even when it's intermittently, it's not genuine, it's shadow. And spiritual conception is necessary for it to be sustained in good times and bad times. For one to become dhira, where even in provocation in terms of bad things or good things, one remains unchanged by that, requires spiritual conception. And with spiritual conception, shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that comes gradually, or comes as one matures. Until one is matured, it's, sometimes not. It's anishtita bhakti, unsteady devotion. So the solution is steady devotion. And then steady devotion comes by purification. Anartha nivritti. On the other side of that is steady devotion, nishtha. Nashta, so that's how to is nashta prayeshu, abhadreshu, nityam bhagavata sevaya, bhagavati. So that's the solution. There's no substitute for purity. No shortcuts. It's purity. And there's a price for purity, our sincere desire and application in the process with faith. Anything else? Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, similar to Mataji's question, verse 34, where in the translation it says that 11 presiding deities, including Lord Shiva, for the senses. Now, which sense is controlled by Lord Shiva?
I don't know. I was wondering the question myself, and the only thing, he's the presiding deity of false ego.
Right.
And false ego kind of looks out for everything, or permeates everything.
And Maharaj, if you could please explain that again one more time. I didn't get it, that in the verse translation it says that they drank the nectar, and then you said the gopis are not material, they are not the demigods, like something you mentioned about that, but I didn't get it in the same verse, 34.
I'm not sure what you're referring to. Which verse?
Verse 34, where it's written for the senses, 11 presiding deities, including Lord Shiva, and then in the end it says, Lord Brahma is saying, and then you explain that for the residents of Brindavan, they are not material, they are spiritual.
There we go.
Yes, this is the one, yeah, 33.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to look again more closely at the commentary of our acharyas. The happiness. We're not pure devotees. Most of us. Maybe there's some pure devotees, but most of us aren't pure devotees. Even if we're not pure devotees, when we observe or experience someone is having amazing happiness in their activities of devotional service, just seeing that makes us happy. In the case of Lord Brahma, he's a pure devotee. And when he sees the happiness of the residents of Brindavan, he becomes exceedingly happy, seeing their happiness. So he's using, they're using their senses to serve the master of the senses. They're serving their senses, their spiritual forms, to serve the spiritual form of Krishna. He sees their happiness. He observed they're having lunch together. And they were having happiness not like when we have lunch together. Or even when Lord Brahma has lunch with whoever he has lunch. The happiness he was experiencing through them was a greater happiness than eating himself or doing anything else. So it's another kind of happiness besides the happiness of assisting someone who has a material body, as the demigods do, and giving strength to their sensual power, because that's what demigods do. They give strength or withdraw the strength of sensual power. Specific to the residents of Vrindavan, it's a spiritual happiness. They're experiencing spiritual happiness because of his pure devotion. He's able to experience spiritual happiness. Because of his pure devotion and their super pure devotion, super excellent devotion. Yes?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So, if you could explain, though Lord Brahma is such a great devotee, why is it that it said Shiva is the greatest devotee?
Well, they're not competing with one another. And Lord Brahma is a post, Lord Shiva is a person, not a post. And a qualified person occupies the post of Lord Brahma. But Lord Shiva is in a different category altogether. We need to think of him differently altogether than a living entity who gets a post because of their qualification. His likeness and closeness to the Supreme Lord is unique. And then similarly also his devotion, and therefore he's the greatest of all Vaishnavas. He is. Yeah, so what we're saying here is not all Mahajans are equal. Lord Shiva is superlative amongst them. He's in a category of his own. Now, in another sense, we can say they're all equal because they're Mahajan. It's a subtlety. Don't get caught and lost in subtleties. If you remember, you probably remember, some of you will remember, when we discussed in Sri Brahma Samhita, verse 38, it was just text describing the position of Lord Shiva. And one part of that was the presentation in Rupa Goswami's Nectar of Devotion, where every living entity has 50 of Krishna's 64 qualities in a small degree. Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma have another 5 qualities, plus the other 50 in a greater degree. Between the two, Lord Shiva has, of those 5 qualities, a larger degree than Lord Brahma has. But it's not exactly put them on a scale and say, okay, you weigh more, you have more qualities. But it's aesthetic, and we can appreciate. He's in a special position. He's in a special position. That's good enough. Now consider the other 11, Prahlad Maharaj and Shukadev Goswami, and what are we going to do? I mean, we don't want to make offenses and say, Shukadev, you're down, and Lord Shiva, you're up. You win the most valuable player award, most valuable Mahabhagavata award. We don't want to do that.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. For Kirtan?